So, I, 28, male, ran away from home when I was 18. Yeah, you read that right. Ran away. But before you start picturing some dramatic, angsty teenager storming out with a backpack full of clothes and a one-way ticket to nowhere, hold up. It wasn't anything like that. I didn't go off looking for adventure or some weird journey of self-discovery. Nah, it was way simpler and way messier than that. Let me set the stage for you. I had a pretty damn good childhood. My parents, well, to be blunt, they were well off. My dad owned his own business. Nothing huge, but successful enough to keep us comfy. And my mom, she was a moderately successful real estate agent. Together, they made sure I was always taken care of. Private school? Check. Never had to worry about money? Double check. I lived in a nice house, ate out at decent restaurants, and went on family vacations like clockwork. Basically, life was easy street. I wasn't a spoiled brat, though. I mean, I didn't demand expensive gifts or throw tantrums when I didn't get my way. But I was taken care of. No complaints there. I was the kind of kid who was happy with a good book, a solid Xbox session, or kicking back with my friends. I had everything I needed, and I trusted that would never change. Now here's the kicker. They promised me they'd pay for my college. Said it outright. As in, don't worry about tuition, son. We've got you covered. All you have to do is focus on school. And at the time, I thought that was a pretty sweet deal. I never really had to think about how I'd pay for college because I had zero reason to doubt them. I trusted my parents. Why wouldn't I? They'd always been there for me, giving me everything I asked for, supporting me, making sure I was comfortable. They were my rock. But here's where the wheels start to fall off. Around the time I turned 18, something shifted. My dad started acting strange. Not weird in a fun way, like buying a motorcycle and joining a biker gang. Nah, more like stressed, strange. He spent hours holed up in his office, working late into the night, his face constantly wrinkled with that "I'm wearing too many hats" look. I asked my mom about it. "Is Dad okay?" "He's not himself," I said, but she just brushed it off. "Oh, he's fine," she would say. "Just work stuff." Yeah, work stuff. Okay. But it didn't feel right. I could tell something was off, and it nagged at me. Still, I didn't think much of it at first. Life kept moving, and I was busy getting ready for the next big chapter, college. But as the months rolled by, I kept reminding them that we needed to start talking about tuition. The bills were coming in, and I was excited to head off to college. I kept saying, "Hey, remember, college, tuition. We've got that all set, right?" I felt totally confident because, well, they'd promised. No questions asked. And then, the punchline. One night, my dad sat me down. I remember the look on his face. Tired, drawn, like a man who'd just run a marathon he wasn't prepared for. He said it, like it was just another thing on the list of dad stuff he had to get through. "We can't help you with college," he said. I swear, I felt the floor drop out from under me. "What do you mean? You promised..." My voice trailed off, but the meaning was clear. I was being left to fend for myself. We can't," he said, avoiding my eyes. "You'll have to figure it out." And just like that, everything I'd been counting on shattered. I was on my own. I'll be honest, it hit me like a freight train. I couldn't even process it at first. All those years of them telling me, "We've got you, don't worry," suddenly felt like a cruel joke. And the worst part? I wasn't mad. I was just lost. They'd given me everything up until that point, and then, just like that, the floor dropped out from under me. I wasn't ready for this. I had no idea what to do next. How was I going to pay for college? If they had told me about the whole financial mess a couple of months before they did, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I could have adjusted and figured out a plan. But no, they dropped the bomb just a few weeks before I was supposed to start college. A few weeks. And that's where everything went sideways. I had no backup plan, no clue what I was going to do. I was 18, a mess of confusion, anger, and disappointment. Why would they do this to me? I kept asking myself. I wasn't some entitled kid. I never asked for much. Hell, I didn't even ask for a lot of attention. I just wanted what they'd promised. The fight that followed was brutal. My dad tried to explain, like that was going to make it all better. My mom said nothing, just stared at the floor like she was ashamed. But the damage was done. They broke my trust. I stormed up to my room, slamming the door behind me. I didn't even bother to respond to their calls or knocks. I just sat there in the dark, numb, until tears were rolling down my face. The worst part? My birthday. Of all days, it had to be that day. I was supposed to be celebrating, but instead I was holed up in my room, crying my eyes out, feeling completely abandoned. It was my birthday, for God's sake, and they didn't even check on me, not once. I know. Maybe that's a bit dramatic, but it hurt. It really did. They'd always been there for me before. Hell, I didn't even know how to handle the weight of everything. How could they just leave me hanging like that? No one asked me how I felt about their financial troubles. No one cared to check in, even after they knew I was crushed. By evening, my sadness started to shift into something darker, something more intense. I was angry, furious. And I couldn't just sit there feeling sorry for myself anymore. I had to do something. That's when I decided I was going to teach them a lesson. They'd made me feel small, so now I was going to make them feel small. I packed my things in a duffel bag, just enough to get by for a night or two. I wasn't thinking long term. I didn't know then that this was going to be the start of something that would change everything. I wasn't trying to run away from my life forever. I just wanted to make them worry. Show them that their actions had consequences. I grabbed my stuff, tiptoed through the house, and snuck out the kitchen door. I didn't even leave a note. I didn't want them to have any warning. Just the quiet click of the door behind me was enough. I slipped out into the night, leaving them all in the dark. Where was I going? To Haley's, of course. She was my safe place. My childhood sweetheart. My rock. I knew I could count on her. She was always there when I needed her, and I'd been avoiding her calls all day. It didn't feel right, but I didn't know how else to process everything that was happening. I figured the seeing her would ground me, maybe even calm my nerves. I made my way to her house, and the moment she opened the door, I could see the worry on her face. She'd been calling me all day, wondering why I'd canceled the party, wondering why I'd been MIA. She wrapped me up in a hug, and for a second I felt like maybe I wasn't completely lost. But then I had to tell her everything that had happened, how my parents had pulled the rug out from under me, how they left me high and dry. She was shocked, more than I expected, honestly. She knew my parents. We'd all spent years together, celebrating holidays and family gatherings, so she couldn't believe they'd pull something like this either. "I don't get it," she said, looking at me with disbelief. "Your parents always promised they'd help. What happened?" I shrugged, feeling all of it rise up again. The betrayal, the frustration, the hopelessness. "I don't know. They just didn't." I let out a bitter laugh, even though I didn't feel like laughing. "So I left. I can't stay there anymore, Haley. I just can't." She didn't say much after that, but she didn't need to. She didn't try to fix things or tell me what to do. She just listened. and that was enough. Haley and her parents took me in that night. They didn't ask questions, just gave me a place to crash. I stayed there for a few days, unsure of what my next move should be. I was angry at my parents, but I didn't want to burn every bridge. I couldn't. But as the days passed, something started to shift in me. I began to realize that running away wasn't going to solve anything. I'd left a mess behind, an emotional wreckage, and I wasn't sure how I was going to fix it. I was running on fumes, and for the first time, I felt like the future was a complete unknown. I knew one thing, though. I wasn't going back until I figured it out. I remember walking into Haley's house after I left my own, thinking it would be a temporary escape. Just a few days to cool off. I didn't want to go back home, not yet, not until I'd figured out what I was supposed to feel. I thought maybe my parents would come around eventually, that they'd realize how unreasonable they were being and fix things. I mean, they had to, right? They were my parents. They'd made promises. They couldn't just leave me hanging like this forever. But of course, that's not what happened. 3 days passed, and I was starting to settle in, trying to keep myself distracted. Haley and I spent the time together, and I figured maybe this would be a good opportunity to hang out more with her, get away from the mess at home for a bit. But then, on the 3rd day, things took another unexpected turn. Her parents, who had been super supportive of me staying over, sat me down for a serious conversation. They had this concerned look on their faces, and I knew something was coming. They told me that my parents had decided they wouldn't speak to me anymore, not until I apologized. I'll admit I was pretty stunned. Apologize? For what? I hadn't done anything wrong. I told them straight up that there was no way I was apologizing to anyone. I thought it was insane. I was the one who was hurt, the one who had been left out to dry, and they wanted me to apologize? I was indignant, almost shaking with anger. Haley's parents, being the kind-hearted people they were, tried to reason with me. They said they supported me and honestly thought my parents were being totally inconsiderate and unfair. But still, they told me that if I ever wanted to go back home, I would have to apologize. I was furious. I refused. I was not going to apologize to them. Not for this. I told them I wasn't going back. If it came down to it, I'd find somewhere else to stay. I didn't want to be a burden, and I'd make it on my own. But Haley's parents wouldn't have it. They loved me like their own son, and they weren't having any of it. "You're not going anywhere," they insisted. "We're not letting you live on the streets just to prove a point. Stay with us until this blows over." They wouldn't take no for an answer. They didn't care that I thought I was imposing. They made it clear that they were happy to have me around, and I wasn't going anywhere. So I stayed. A few days turned into a few weeks, and I found myself living in their home where I spent the rest of the summer before college. The whole thing was surreal. The more time I spent away from my parents, the more I realized how hurt I was. I felt like my entire foundation had been shaken. My parents had always been there for me, or at least that's what I thought. But now, they had pushed me away, leaving me to deal with the mess they'd created. And here I was, staying with my girlfriend's parents, while my own parents shut me out. A few weeks later, just as I was starting to get used to this new normal, something changed again. My father-in-law sat me down. I was ready for another lecture, another well-meaning but unwanted piece of advice. But this time, it was different. He told me he had arranged the money for my tuition. Wait, what? I couldn't believe it. He had reached out and put together a plan to help me pay for school. And here's the kicker. He wasn't treating it like a loan. It wasn't a typical student loan that would hang over my head for years to come. There were no interest rates. He told me I could pay him back when I was able, once I had a job. The shock didn't wear off immediately. It was overwhelming in a way I couldn't quite put into words. I was grateful, of course, but I also felt guilty. Why should they have to do this for me? My own parents should have been the ones to step up. And yet, here I was, getting help from my in-laws. But the most surprising part? He told me it was time to call my dad. Time to make things right. To apologize. I was stuck. I wanted to go back to my parents and fix things, but I didn't think it was that simple. It wasn't about the money. It was about everything else. My dad, in his pride and stubbornness, still didn't think he had done anything wrong. He had never admitted fault, and that was the problem. It wasn't just the broken promises. It wasn't just the lack of support. It was the fact that they had lied to me, told me everything would be okay when they knew it wouldn't be. They had built up this false sense of security for me, only to rip it all away when it was too late. And that just broke me. I wasn't sure how to move forward. I wanted to be the bigger person. I wanted to fix things. But how could I when my dad refused to acknowledge his own part in this mess? Even if I were to go back home, how could I forgive him for making me feel so small? For making me feel like I didn't matter? I didn't have the answers, not yet. But I knew I had to find a way to heal somehow. And if that meant staying away a little longer to let everything cool down, then so be it. I wasn't ready to face them just yet. But Haley, she was there for me. She always was. And maybe, just maybe, that was the one thing that would keep me from falling apart. It wasn't just the fact that my parents stopped talking to me that hurt. It was what that silence meant. We had always been so close. I mean, we had our disagreements, sure, but we were a family. We laughed together, went on trips, and celebrated holidays. I had a solid, good relationship with them. And then one fight, one huge blow-up, and everything was gone. Just like that. It was like I wasn't even their son anymore. They chose their pride, their material things over their own flesh and blood. That realization stung in ways I can't even describe. All the promises, all the years, and none of it mattered when things got tough. My dad, with his ego and his business empire, couldn't even bring himself to admit he'd let me down. And my mom? She just stood by, silent, letting it all happen. To me, it was unforgivable. For a long time, I didn't know what to do with that pain. I didn't call them, and they never called me. That's how it ended. The silence stretched on, and eventually, I learned to live without them. A decade passed, and everything in my life changed. A lot can happen in 10 years, and it did. I met Haley, my childhood sweetheart, and we got married a few years ago. We were happy. I was happy. And I remember thinking, this is all I need now. Life had moved on, and I had found the family I wanted, the family I deserved. And then, about a year ago, Haley and I had a baby boy, our little boy. He was perfect, and he completed our little world. But there was something missing in that moment. My parents. I realized they had never asked about him, never showed any interest in their own grandson. I wasn't surprised, though. By that point, I had kind of given up hope that they would ever reach out to me. They didn't even come to my wedding, for God's sake. They weren't there when I graduated or when I got engaged. They weren't there for the most important milestones of my life. It wasn't even about the big moments anymore. It was the small things, the little things they had missed. But I had long since stopped hoping for any kind of reconciliation. I had moved on. And in the years since that painful split, I had done pretty well for myself. I started out working at a small firm, and with a lot of hard work and persistence, I climbed the ranks. I'm in a managerial position now, and my salary isn't something I have to worry about anymore. Life has been good to me, even if my parents weren't around to see it. I also managed to pay off the debt I owed to my father-in-law, which was something I had been meaning to do for a while. He'd helped me when I needed it most, and not once did he ever ask for anything in return. That's just the kind of person he is. He didn't even want me to pay him back, but I did anyway. I paid him back more than what I owed because I wanted to show him, in whatever way I could, how much I appreciated him. Money can't express gratitude, but it was the best I could do. In all honesty, my 18-year-old self would probably be in awe of where I am today. He never imagined this kind of life for himself. He never expected to go through the pain of losing his parents, and he certainly didn't think he'd get to a place where he was content without them. But I'm here, and I'm okay. I thought that after all these years, I would never hear from my parents again. They had every opportunity to reach out. They could have tried when I graduated, when I got engaged, or when I had my son, but they never did. I made sure to post everything on social media so someone, anyone, would have told them. But they chose not to care. They chose to stay silent. I won't lie. There were times when I missed them. Even after all the pain, even after everything they put me through, I still missed them. That's the thing about family, right? You can't just turn it off, even when they hurt you. But I stopped holding out hope that they would ever reach out. It was clear that, to them, nothing mattered more than their pride and their refusal to admit they were wrong. And you know what? If they couldn't accept that they had hurt me, that they had let me down, then I couldn't just let them back into my life. Not without that apology, not without that acknowledgement. Without it, I didn't want them around. I had built my life with Haley, with our son, and with my in-laws. They were the family I needed, the family I deserved. If my parents couldn't see that, then maybe it was time for me to finally stop trying to fix what was broken. Because some things you can't go back and fix. But as much as I told myself I was done with them, a part of me still couldn't quite let go of the idea of what could have been. So, fast forward to now. After all these years of silence, I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to my parents. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I had been doing a lot of thinking. I realized I wasn't the only one who'd messed up. Yeah, they had their faults, but maybe I could have been a better son too. I wasn't perfect either. So I called them up, laid it all out, and said I was ready to make things right. I told them how I felt about everything that happened and how I wished they had been better parents during that tough time. But I also admitted I hadn't exactly been the best kid to them either. It was a long conversation, but in the end, I invited them over for dinner. Next week, actually. And to my surprise, they agreed. And not only that, they were actually going to meet their grandson. I didn't know if I was more excited or nervous, but I felt this huge weight lifting off me. It was like after all this time, maybe, just maybe, we could finally rebuild what had been broken. I could finally have my parents back in my life again. And that meant everything to me. I went back home and told Haley the news. She was absolutely thrilled. We talked about it for a bit and decided that maybe we should make it a family dinner. Both our parents together. It was kind of a big deal, you know? After so many years of separation, to finally bring everyone under one roof felt like something worth celebrating. Okay, so here's the update. The family dinner just happened, and oh my God, it was everything I could have hoped for and more. It was a total blast. Everyone was on their best behavior, and it was surprisingly warm and comfortable. There were no awkward silences, no tension, just people reconnecting. My parents and my in-laws finally broke the ice, and I can't even tell you how emotional it was to watch them all get along like nothing. had ever happened. My parents got to meet their grandson for the first time, and it was so emotional. There were tears, lots of them. It felt like the world was finally right again. After all the pain, the distance, the years of lost time, we were finally starting to heal. And yeah, we cried. I think we all did, to be honest. But what matters is that it happened. And now we're talking about making this a regular thing. No more waiting for things to get better on their own. We're making it a point to stay close, to make time for each other. It's funny. Being around them again really made me realize just how much I missed them. All those years of silence, thinking I was fine without them, when in reality, I was just pretending to be okay. But now I don't think I'll ever let them go again, especially not with my mom's condition. Time is a lot shorter than we think. And I don't want to waste it. Story 2. It's time to raise a chair. Today in New York, we have another fantastic tale for you. Relax, to possess and hold. Except if you're a complete jerk. Is there anyone in the lounge today? Watching karma work its magic is the epitome of a happily ever after. Jesse, a 30-year-old man and one of my closest friends, is marrying Natalia next month. High 30 male, 27 female. Jesse and I have been friends since kindergarten. We were raised together. He and I lived across the street. Together we used to stroll to school. Together we belonged to the Boy Scouts. In actuality, we have supported one another through good times and bad. When I was trying to fit in and was hiding who I really was, he ended up dating my ex-girlfriend. His parents have always been like second parents to me, and he was there when I came out to my family. I am homosexual. In fact, they call me their adopted son. The closest thing I have to a brother is Jesse. Over the years, he's had a good number of girlfriends. He served as the volleyball team's captain and even used the scholarship he earned from the sport to attend college. He is a smart, attractive man who has never had a problem with women. Simply put, he found it difficult to maintain one because he didn't have much time for a lady due to his busy profession. However, he claimed to have known Natalia was the one when they first met 3 years ago. And after all these years, she was just what he had been searching for. She understands completely. I couldn't be happier for them both, and they are completely smitten with one another. When Jesse proposed to Natalia last year when they were in San Francisco, she enthusiastically accepted. I was always treated sweetly by Natalia. We've all known each other since we were young, so it took her some time to get along with our group of pals. Because we have so many inside jokes and tales to share, I believe that when that occurs, individuals start to feel like outsiders. She first arrived with a tough exterior, and since she was attempting to get into law school, I believe she was doing her best to maintain control. But mostly, as soon as she became friendly with all of us, she treated me with such kindness and sweetness. We had even had a lot of one-on-one time together. We spent hours thrifting because we enjoyed it. Together we took a lot of culinary lessons. It was enjoyable to have someone to go exploring with because we both enjoyed doing new things. However, Natalia's attitude toward me altered significantly once they became engaged. Really, a total 180. She was far away from me. She would gaze at me. She would occasionally shun me, ignore me, and seldom talk to me, which was really strange and completely unusual. I initially believed that I could have upset her by saying or doing anything incorrectly. I thus spent a lot of time trying to reflect on the past and consider what I could have done. Since Natalia has been acting so strangely toward me, I finally kind of asked Jesse if she was okay. He denied that anything was wrong and claimed not to have heard anything. My boyfriend then advised me to confront Natalia about it after I asked him whether I should. He said that it may be because I offered to host the wedding at my family's cabin. A little background then. I suggested that they get married in my family's cabin, which is a few hours to the west of here, after they were engaged. I informed them that it's a lovely little private place where guests may spend the weekend and that camping is available nearby if they so choose. They both immediately answered yes, and sounded really enthusiastic about the concept at the time. In order to begin making plans, Natalia even wanted to go out and see it for herself. For a weekend, the four of us went out and it was a lot of fun. However, my partner Tom has now caused me to reconsider this, stating that perhaps nostalgia had other ideas and they felt compelled to say yes. And I say, all right, fair. I thus attempted to get the bravery to approach her, but I avoided doing so up until that point. We all received save-the-date invitations 5 months ago, indicating that their wedding was scheduled to take place. Yes, in the cabin with my family. Due to the cabin's size, it appears that they also intended to keep it small, therefore each person was only permitted to invite one visitor. The friend circle consisted of roughly 30 people, including plus ones. After that, kids may go to whatever household they choose, thus the number appeared to be modest. However, when I compared my invitation to everyone else's, I saw that I was not allowed to bring a guest. She is aware of Tom since my boyfriend and I have been dating for over 8 years and have spent time together. I then gave her a call and asked if there was an error on my invitation. Nope, she responds. This is a serious factory issue, she adds. So Tom isn't invited, I say. Nope, she replies again. She continues. It's unbelievable that we're speaking and that you're even asking me questions about my identity and the specifics of my wedding. Furthermore, I am not permitted to invite anyone to my own wedding. And I was really surprised. Whoa, my family cottage is the venue for your wedding, I remarked. Tom and I have been together for years. We use common law while filing our taxes. Tom is definitely going to be there. The wedding weekend. Whatever crept up your butt, I have no idea. Better crawl back out. I know you love Jesse, and I know you'll do whatever it takes to keep this wedding from happening, she says. And the only reason you're invited is because your ugly, dumb butt cabin is where we have to have the wedding. Since everyone is aware of your intense love for Jesse, I must admit that I feel sad for Thomas. And you have been all along. Therefore, I'm not even sure why you would want him present. To be honest, I have no idea why you would want to be present on the day he marries me. I then questioned her about what the F she was discussing. She said, I knew, so don't be foolish. She hung up after that. After hanging up, I contact Jesse and explain the situation. I also display a picture of my invitation next to the ones our other friends got. He phoned me back with her and a speaker because he was so unhappy and forced her to apologize. But for a split second, I didn't believe it. I'm obviously unhappy. So as soon as Tom gets home from work, I tell him what happened. When Tom attempts to call me down, he assures me that he will always be there, that which says. He's also giggling that she believes I'm in love with Jesse. I mean, I do love him, but not in that way, I think. After that, Tom and I simply laughed it off. Then, shortly after I got the invitations, Jesse asked me to go shopping with him as he needed one. I also need one, since I'm the best dude. When I inquired if Natalia would be attending, he said that she would. He said, "Come on," when I initially refused. "You're my best man and I want you there," she added, apologizing. Did you two ever discuss the location of the wedding, I wonder? Or do you just say yes, since it's the cottage that belongs to my family? No, we definitely talked about it, he says. When you get there, we're both in agreement. He said that they are quite appreciative that I even made the offer. They also believe it to be flawless. Do you both believe it's perfect or do you think it's perfect? I ask you. Where are you going with this? He asks. And I say, I'm not sure. He said, if this is all about the phone call you guys had, I'm really sorry about that. I feel like you could have persuaded him out of doing the wedding at my cabin, but please don't think about this right now. We wouldn't have it any other way, and I truly want to have it at your cabin. Both of us are incredibly grateful and thrilled to have you. Because I knew he was either trying to comfort me or saying something, or he was downplaying the fact that Nat didn't want the wedding at my cabin because she detested me, I chose to ignore it. That simply gets to me. After that, I went to this dress fitting, as well as completely disregarding my presence. Jesse responds negatively to anything I say and says the exact opposite. In the end, both of us discovered that these unsightly suits fit strangely and were inappropriate for a spring wedding. She really threatened to call off the wedding if I didn't back off when Jesse was in the changing room. You won't attend any weddings, and I'll take Jesse to the justice of the peace. She went on to say that once they are married, she would make sure Jesse doesn't see you again since you will be dead to him. She goes on to say that Jesse wants you there and that the only reason you're involved in this day at all is because it's saving us a ton of money. It's strange that I'm actually sitting here like this. Even the store employee who is assisting us is listening to this and staring at me like, what the f? Nat was unaware that I was filming her the whole time and giving Tom the footage, which he preserved. I wanted to keep these in case I needed them later. Knowing how much Jesse loves her, I didn't want to have to send them to him at all. But his choice of this one made me really doubt his sanity. Anyway, I informed Jesse that I'm pulling out of this wedding because I disagree with his partner, choice, once he exits the changing room. Given her true nature and the way she treats me, I can't continue to support him. I can't just watch and act like this isn't taking place. What do you mean? He asks. Should I simply ask your fiancé before getting up and walking away? He keeps calling me and texting me afterwards to explain how he could treat them that way. And now, what will they do for the venue? And pointing out my selfishness. Then Nat starts calling and leaving voicemails, and she tells me the most horrible homophobic nonsense that I will never be able to repeat. She also claims that she is aware that I have destroyed everything and attempted to ruin her wedding, so she has left them to try to find another location for the event. That I've been planning this the entire time, etc. When I tell Tom all of this, he suggests that I keep the voicemail that Nat left me. Give it to Jesse, along with the recordings I made. So I did exactly that. I write Jesse a lengthy message in which I essentially tell him that I love him like a brother and that he should be informed about his impending marriage. Additionally, I don't want him to wed someone who behaves in such a manner. He attempts to explain at first that I'm simply trying to get started or whatever. Then I said, "No, I have evidence. I'll send you this even if I don't want to." "What are you talking about?" he asks. I said, "I knew you wouldn't believe me, so I had to record her." "So you're just recording people without their consent now?" he asks. "Jesse, you really need to understand what you're getting yourself into," I say. I then sent all of the proof. I don't hear from him for a few days after sending him all of stuff before he unexpectedly stops by. At first, I'm not sure what to think. When I finally answer the door, I'm a little nervous. He has been sobbing, as I can see. He requests permission to enter, yet he is understanding if I don't want to interact with him. Naturally, I gave him access, and we ended up talking about how he was sorry he didn't trust me, how he couldn't believe how she was treating me, and how he was simply allowing it to happen without realizing it. "She played him so hard," he added, "and he doesn't want that kind of stuff in his life." He just apologized over and over again, saying that he had broken up with her and called it quits. He called folks during the last several days to inform them that the wedding was canceled. He expressed his gratitude for my continued presence and our relationship throughout the years. "I never deserved to be spoken to or treated the way Nat was treating me," he added. He thanked me for being so honest with him, offering up my cabin, and preventing him from being married to such a wicked person. He claimed that he genuinely believed she was the one. He said how much he values our friendship and me. And you continued stating that he felt bad about what she said and how she treated me. He was so eager to get married that he was dazzled by the wedding bells and refused to believe it. I assured him that finding the right person, not just any person, would not be a problem. Then, we both chuckled at the fact that despite my evident love for him, I don't love him enough to end their relationship because I'm envious of some crazy lady. He said that she was leaving their home while he was there speaking with me. Before he showed them what I emailed him, her parents were furious with him. They were incredulous. She's now attempting to attack me on social media as well, but I've blocked her, so I can't see it. She's also not on Tom's social media accounts. She's calling me a home wrecker and using all these homophobic insults in screenshots that others are emailing me. And I ruined the wedding because I'm in love with Jesse. Our buddy went on a tirade with Nat and began sharing recordings of her interactions with me. Things got out of control, and many people supported me by messaging me to express regret for her actions. Her parents even apologized over the phone. They stated they had initially paid for her law school education, but later changed their minds and wanted to offer it to Tom and me so we could use it to pay for a wedding if we so desired. At the time, I was like, no, just kidding, but I did say it was far too sweet of them. However, they persisted. I have a small gift for you now to help us rejoice and begin a new path together. I wasn't engaged to Tom at the time, but he recently proposed and I accepted. After Jesse's wedding, he was probably preparing something grand. Now that it was all over, he wanted to close it off well, but he didn't want to steal their thunder. Jesse is my best man, of course. You guessed it. We're doing something private. Our closest friends and relatives are invited to my family's cottage. It turns out that there will be a wedding after all, and we are scheduling it for August. Jesse is quite delighted for us, despite the fact that everything that transpired has left him hurt and completely whipped. That hasn't reached him. We haven't. However, she married, that much is certain. She also has no plans to become a lawyer anytime near, through thick and thin. You have been the dependable buddy that everyone aspires to have. From mischievous activities in kindergarten to negotiating the turbulent waters of adulthood, Jesse has been inseparable from you. Your relationship goes beyond friendship. It's vital. He's correct, too. He would be trapped with that miserable lady if it weren't for you, amid the confusion of organizing a wedding. On her beautiful day, Natalia's real colors show through like a thundercloud, the manner in which she handled you. It was betraying to be dismissive, disparaging, and plain vile. Of fundamental human decency, not merely of your friendship. Opie, you didn't deserve that kind of treatment. You took on the poison directly, equipped with just the truth and an unwavering dedication to your friend. And in the end, Jesse was spared a lifetime of suffering because of your bravery and steadfast devotion. So let's toast to you. All right? The perfect example of what a wonderful friend should be. In a society where compassion is seen as weakness and loyalty is frequently disregarded, true friendship has no boundaries, and you are a shining example of it. Jesse is fortunate to have you at his side, and the loss of Natalia serves as a sobering reminder that not everyone is worthy of our affection. Not to be overlooked is the piece de resistance. Once ardent supporters, our parents pulled the rug out from under her more quickly than you can imagine. I oppose to paying for your future wedding joy instead of her law school aspirations. Delicious. Delicious karma. How would you have responded? Is Opie a friend of yours? Tell us in the comments section below. We appreciate you being here with us today. Before you go, remember to click the notification bell, like, and subscribe. Please feel free to leave a remark if you have any opinions on today's topic. I'll see you in the R Lounge next time.